Our next guest is a woman who has already put her mark on the city, right there on Monroe Street. It's a beautiful piece. Her name is Romero Schuler. And since she's been here in Jacksonville, I've become a huge fan. She's so sweet, and her art and the depth of her work is extremely impressive. Her mediums of expression consist of sculpting, painting, writing, and education. She is a Chicago-based artist whose work conveys strength, vulnerability, and a holistic view of beauty. Renee shares her artistic talent and passion by teaching at Illinois Institute of Art and Chicago City Colleges and lecturing at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. Her art is on display in public collections in Chicago, including, the Prudential Building, the Chanel Boutique at Neiman Marcus, Hyatt Hotels, and the permanent archives of the Art Institute of Chicago. Renee's work has been exhibited internationally, most recently in Rome, Paris, and continues to be permanently represented in the United States and obviously right here in our hometown of Jacksonville. She has a book called Renee Romero Schuler, Life and Works. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Renee Romero Schuler.
Hi, everyone. How do I curate my life? I guess the first question that comes to mind for me right now is, how do I follow someone like Krista Kim? Which kind of leads me into how I would answer the first question. How do I fit in? How do I fit here? What brings me here? What is my place in this world? How did I find myself here? I tell my son all the time that there's a place in this world for everyone. And for me, it was hard to figure that out. I spent a lot of time questioning that. So how do I curate my life? I guess the question brings me to where it all began. And for me, that would be kindergarten. I had a pretty difficult time at home. I had a very, very, very challenging life at home. And in kindergarten, I think I was really, truly blessed to have a teacher that was probably way more enthusiastic than I deserved. But she was very excited about my drawings, and I thought, if I can get that reaction out of people for the rest of my life, that would be a really great thing. And whether I had any talent or not, that was pretty much how I determined what my direction was going to be. I've known since I was 4 that I am an artist. There was never a question. And when I was dealing with all of the challenges of life in my home as a child, art was my place of solace. That is where I felt safe and grounded and okay. And I began curating my own life. I figured that was the right direction for me, and I just kept developing that practice. And as many things as might have beaten me down over the years, and that happens a lot, just in life, obviously, and we've all had our challenges, but in art too, I chose a path that is really difficult. It's very, very difficult to find success in this world as an artist. Success, how do you define that? Well, for me, defining that is making a living, paying bills, supporting myself, and having the comforts that I feel I deserve. So how to attain that as an artist? It's not easy. And you get so many no's along the way. You get so much rejection along the way. And trying to stay with your purpose is very, very, very challenging. But I keep curating my life. That purpose is what guides me. I look at what art has given me, and like I said, it gives me healing and strength and grounding. And that's a gift. You know, when I start creating in the studio, I'm so singularly focused that it breaks down all the stuff in the world that's challenging me. And I get this gift from what I do. And no matter what comes out of that process, whether somebody interprets my work as, you know, one thing or another, it's irrelevant to me, because for me, the experience of creating the work is profound and beautiful. And taking it outside of that, my purpose in what I do is to give that gift to the world. You know, coming from a place that was fraught with challenge like I did, you know, one of the experiences I think we all have to endure in life is we're judged by how we look. People make assumptions because you look a certain way. And that's just human nature. I certainly can't fault anyone for that, but nobody knew my story, and I would encounter people along the way that just made assumptions and would be dismissive or whatever things would come into their mind. But it was a difficult life, and I dealt with things like post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, pain so profound it was incomprehensible. And I've never been the kind of person to look for a pity party or to wear these things on my sleeve. I'm not a provocative artist. I'm not going to put a bleeding heart on the canvas and hope that everyone sees my pain. For me, I just needed something to give me peace. And the work developed, and I'm putting something out there that I think conveys what I really wanted to convey, and that is that we're all beautiful. It doesn't matter what we look like on the outside. You can judge, you can do whatever, but none of that really matters. You know, you look at my paintings and they're very deliberately stripped down to just what really matters. You look at it from a distance, it's a beautiful figure. And you look at it up close and it's scratched and textured and flawed and just very deliberately marked. And that's what we all are. But you step away and there's beauty there. And that's what we need to feel in this world. So my mission is to put that out there for everybody that's needing that bit of support. Everybody needs to feel beautiful. I know my talk is a little short, but that's pretty much how I would answer that question. I curate my life by just trying to tell people that they're beautiful. That's it. Thank you.
I want to ask you a question, Renee, specifically about art. I know for all of us in here who are art makers, it's often difficult, especially in my field of theater, to know when I'm done. When is it finished? Is it done? And that's also the beautiful thing about theater, is that it appears and it goes away. And I'm curious to know about your work. You deal in very beautiful specifics when you're working on your canvas and your sculptures. And there's a sense of imperfection there. Talk a little bit about that. When do you know your pieces are done?
One of the most important things I've ever heard in my life was something that Deepak Chopra said. He says, we are all spiritual beings in rented bodies. So that resonated with me at such a visceral level, and that is something that I bring into my work every time I create. I think it's really important, at least for me and my scope, to strip the figures down of overly discernible characteristics, to, and some of them, make them fade back into the background, to really show that the physicality that we all, look at in the mirror every day is really less important than the spirit that emanates from within. And so the imperfection comes from that, and also just from the realities of life, the human condition. And I would say every flaw and imperfection you see in my work is actually very deliberate, very thought out, very purposeful. And how I know when it's done, that was probably one of the greatest challenges of my artistic career. I think I spent the first 30 years of creating never feeling like one was done. I obsessed to such a crippling degree that I didn't put my work out publicly. I just couldn't. It was beyond something I could really do. It was just absolutely crippling. And that was very much a part of my personality. I was really just very obsessive over every detail and trying to make it some version of perfect that was just completely unattainable. And that was a really hard thing to overcome, and I overcame it purely by accident. Just putting paint to canvas in a very haphazard way one day, kind of in a little bit of a tantrum, I would say, but knowing that I was pressed for time one day, I just put a bunch of paint on a canvas with a palette knife. I was cleaning the leftover paint from my palette, and I came back to it the next day, and I was very puzzled by what I saw, because I saw something emerging from the mess of paint that I left on the canvas the day before. And so I just kind of started experimenting and took that palette knife and just kept working into it, and drawing out what I was seeing. And I think I put a day into this piece. And I just stepped back from it, and I looked at it, and I wept. It was the first time in my life that I looked at a piece and said, I was holding the palette knife, but there was nothing else I could do. It was so horribly imperfect, so not what I had ever done in the past, and yet there was just nothing more I could do. And so that is something that has continued with this body of work. The body of work has developed and evolved and become what it is today, but in every piece, and that is really kind of a challenge now, with as busy as I've gotten, is to stay that connected to the work. What's really important to me in my work is that it emanates from my soul. It's my soul going onto that canvas, and if that connection isn't there, the piece isn't viable. And there are definitely some where that happens. I think it's done, but there's nothing else I can do to it. But I come back in the studio and I'm like, no, the connection didn't stay. It's not a viable piece. So I just know, I just feel it, because I stay connected to it a lot.
You mentioned that catharsis earlier, seeing your pieces and all the imperfections, which actually never make it perfect, right? Because we are imperfect, and that's what makes us who we are. You articulate that so well in your work, so I appreciate that personally. I've always been curious about how do we continue to maintain some sense of relevance in the arts, and I was thinking about these questions for myself as well as a theater maker, right? And how do I keep the new digital audience engaged with my work? And I'm curious to know, Renee, for you, how do you do that? Your work is still very potent and still full of life and energy. Is there any sense from you that you feel you need to keep up with the digital age of art?
Well, I don't think in those terms. I really don't. I love collaborations. I like crossing over boundaries and finding challenges throughout my career. I think that's what helps, my main body of work to grow and evolve. But I don't ever feel like I need to limit myself. I've done collaborations with sprinkles. I've designed cupcakes. I've worked with a stained glass artist. I sculpt. I've collaborated with other sculptors. I'm going to be collaborating with a ceramicist. I have a collaboration in the works with my very, very dear friend Patty Ryan in San Francisco, who's a graphic artist, but she creates light boxes and she incorporates her poetry. And she and I are working on a collaborative show doing my paintings and then her interpretations of my paintings in light boxes with poetry and putting the two together. I feel like that's going to be a groundbreaking show that I'm looking forward to doing. But as far as do I feel an inner burning to keep up with some other things, I don't. My work really is a direct extension of my heart and my soul. And I think as long as it stays relevant to me, it's relevant to the world. I just don't think about, working in a classic way and bringing in, ancient techniques or ideas, but staying true to what I'm doing and keeping that mission statement solid. That's all I care about.
Agreed. 100%. All right.